Your test corrections are due Friday, and today I'll also ask to see your grade that you got on your e-cart. So you should already have that recorded in your spiral notebooks. Okay. So the new lesson today is going to be on direct and inverse variation, and you'll just follow your calendar for your homework. And like I said before, if you don't finish the if you don't finish the test nav, then you can Google that and finish at home. All right, so direct and inverse variation. So I'm just going to go over some examples with you. The first one, we're going to start with in the new packet, page 1. It's called direct variation, and it says it is a specific relationship in which there is a constant, and you're going to find that constant by saying y divided by x. So you know how you have a y coordinate and an x coordinate. So you have y divided by x will equal to the constant. And actually put up here k equals, all right, so k equals y divided by x. And then to write your direct variation equation, it's going to be in the form of y equals to kx. So k will be a number. The only number that you'll be filling in is this number right here. So it could be something like y equals 3x, or y equals 4x, or y equals 6x, or whatever. So that's the only number you're going to be filling in, is the value of k. Now, direct variation has a very specific graph, and we'll get to that in a second. It's very easy to tell if a graph represents direct variation. So let's start with the constant. Constant is k. We find k by taking the y value dividing it by the x value. So here it says identify the constant of the ordered pairs below, then write the equation to represent the relationship. So like I said, once you have k, then you'll write it so it'll look like this. So we don't actually leave the dot in between, right? All right, so here we go. So this is how you find k. Here's your y value. Here's your x value. 4 divided by 1 equals 4. And if you do this every single time, you will get the same constant. Constant means that number is not changing. So like here, 8 divided by 2 is 4. 12 divided by 3 is 4. 16 divided by 4 is also 4. So when it remains constant for all of your x and y values, then it's considered direct variation, and you write it as y equals to 4x. Okay. Same thing over here. Here's your y value. Here's your x value. So 3 divided by -6 is -1/2. You do it again. 2 divided by -4. It's also -1/2. Okay, we don't even have to worry about 0, 0, because that's not, because that's just going to be a common point that you're going to see in a few minutes. And then -1 divided by 2 is -1/2. So we write y equals -1/2 x. So the k number is the only number that you need. So what I want you to do now before we go any further is to take your graphic calculators out, and I want you to actually put in to your y equals, put in y equals 4x and y equals -1/2 x. All right, so when you put in those two equations, you hit graph. Okay, what you're going to notice is the common point is 0, 0. So basically all direct variation equations are very easy to identify because they will always pass through the origin. Always. Okay, so that's how you can tell if a line is considered direct variation. And on your standardized test, they will give you multiple graphs, and they might say which one of these graphs represents direct variation. So you're looking for a line that passes through the origin. Okay, that is how you tell. So go into number 3. We, again, just take the y value divided by x to get our constant. And again, you'll notice that 0, 0 is in there because it's a common point. So we got -8 divided by -12 comes out to be a positive 2/3. You do always have to reduce your fractions. Okay, -4 divided by -6 will still be 2/3 and so on. So you say y equals 2/3 x. Same thing for number 4. Take your y value divided by your x value. So that's going to be 12 divided by -4 is -3. So y equals to -3x. And notice, there's nothing after the x term. Because if I said y equals 2/3 x plus 8, that's now in slope-intercept form. That's not direct variation. So direct variation is just y equals kx. All right, so here they're asking you, identify the equations below that represent a direct variation. So you want to solve these for y first if they haven't been solved for y. This one is solved for y. It is in the form of y equals to some number at x. So yes, it is direct variation. And your constant is 3. Okay, k equals 3. Same here. This is in the form of y equals kx because you got a number times x. So your k value is -4. And you could graph this too and see that it's passing through the origin. Okay, number 7 is a no. What's missing in number 7? Why is this not in direct variation? Right, you don't have an x after that too. And really, if you graph this on your calculator and get a visual, it's just a horizontal line. That's all it is. And it's not passing through the origin either. So that's a no. Okay, moving on. Obviously, again, you got to solve for y first. So when I divide by 2, I have y equals to 5/2 x. Yes, it is direct variation. Okay, and our constant is 5/2. All right, this is a no. What form is this in? Yes, this is slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b form. Okay, so that's slope-intercept form, that's a no. Okay, this, yes, it is in y equals kx because k is -1. Okay, remember how we don't write that 1, but it's there. And then when we solve this for y, we have to divide by 2. So it's like an invisible 1 at the top. So y equals 1/2 x and k is 1/2. All right, when I solve this equation for y, I end up in slope-intercept form. So this is not in direct variation form. Okay, and then number 13 is a yes. Okay, so I'll give you a few minutes to write those down. All right, so now we're going to look at a graph and determine whether or not it is in direct variation form. We know this is direct variation because it is passing through the origin. Okay, that's number 1. So it says, if yes, identify the constant. Well, the constant is like your slope. So really it's asking you for the slope because when it's in mx plus b form, the number beside x is your slope. Okay, so you can say k and m are really equal to each other. Okay, so you're finding your slope. So you can take these 2 points right here. Okay, or you can take these 2 here, doesn't matter. So if I go over 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, my rise is this way. So that's 3, and this is 2. So your slope is 3/2. So, which is also your constant. So y equals to 3/2 x. Over here, this is a no. Okay, why is this a no? Yes, it's not passing through the origin. Okay, we can still write the equation for it. We can still find our slope, rise over run. Okay, -1/2 x, and it's passing the y-intercept at +4. So we can still write the equation, but it's definitely not direct variation. Okay, this is direct variation. It's passing through the origin. And of course, if you do your slope, you get -1/4. Okay, rise is 1, run is 4. This is also direct variation. It's passing through the origin. And you can do your slope here. Okay, 3 and 3. So that equals to 1. Y equals to like 1x or just x. We don't actually write the 1. Any questions on those? All right. All right. So what happens if you are missing one of the values? All right, so let's take a look. So it says, if the following ordered pairs represents a direct variation, and remember, k is y divided by x, find the missing value. So here we go. Here's my y value, -4. Here's my x value divided by 2. Equals. So you're setting it up like a proportion. Y value, I don't know, so I use the actual y over x. Okay, when you cross multiply, 2 times y is 2y. -6 times -4 is 24. Divide by 2, you get y equals to 12. It's very easy to set it up. You're setting it up by cross multiplying like a proportion. Okay, y value over x value, number 19. So we got 16 over 4 equals y value over x value, 25 over x. Okay, then we're going to cross and multiply. Cross this way, I get 16x. Cross this way, I get 96. Divide both sides by 16, x equals to 6. Now you're setting it up as a proportion. Same thing here. You just keep doing the same thing. Y over x. So y over 12 equals 7 over 4. Cross multiply, 4y equals 84. Divide by 4, y equals to 21. Okay. So I'm going to stop and give you guys a few minutes to finish up those, and then we'll go over the answers. Okay, I'm going to let you go ahead and check to see how you did. So for 22, you should have -5. For 23, 40. And for 24, it's -30. And for 25, the answer is 5. Okay. All right, any questions? There we go. Any questions on those? So keep in mind, again, for direct variation, it should look like y equals kx. K is your constant, which is like the slope number. And to get k, you take the y value divided by the x value. Okay? All right, so the opposite of direct variation, okay, next page, is called inverse variation. Okay, so now to get k, instead of dividing, because the opposite of division is what? Multiplication. So we're going to be multiplying x and y for the inverse. So you got, now your k is going to be x times y. So when you write your equation for inverse variation, your k number is going to be divided by x, whereas in your direct variation, it was k times x. So everything is now just the opposite of direct variation. Okay, so that's why it's called inverse variation. And this graph looks totally different. It will never touch 0, 0. Okay, so we'll take a look. And actually go ahead and take your calculators. We could actually put in some random equations. Hit your y equals key. And remember, it has to be like the constant divided by x. So let's just do 3 divided by x. If I put in 3 divided by x, you're going to end up seeing 2 graphs. Okay? And that is an inverse variation graph. There'll always be in opposite quadrants. So like if I did -3 over x, they would have been in these 2 quadrants. And notice they will never touch the center. They will never touch 0, 0. So these graphs are very easy to identify because they have a particular shape, and there'll always be 2 of them, and they'll always be in opposite quadrants of each other. Okay, so that's what we call inverse variation, and they will never pass through 0, 0. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and do some, just like we did with direct variation, we're going to take and find k. So remember, k now is multiplying x and y together instead of dividing. So 1 times 20 is 20. If you did 2 times 10 is 20. 4 times 5 is 20. So your constant is 20. And we write it as y equals k over x, so 20 over x. Again, multiplying your 2 numbers together every single time, you will get -28. So y equals -28 divided by x. Okay. So for here, same thing. You're just multiplying these 2 numbers together. Each time you'll get -12. So y equals -12 over x. Multiply to get your constant in the table. Each time it comes out to be 6. So y equals to 6 over x. All right. So here's a graph of some inverse variations. And right now I'm going to have you all copy the tables and just basically go ahead and sketch the curve. We don't have to be exact on this, but I do want you to have the exact numbers in your table. Okay, so go ahead and copy the table. So basically, when you're doing this, you might want to put all your positive numbers in a table. So notice how there are 2 tables, and you want to put all your negative numbers in a table. All right, so basically when you look at the table and you know k equals to 16, you're just really getting all the combinations of 16. 1 times 16, 2 times 8, 4 times 4, 8 times 2, and then both numbers just become negative on this side. Okay. All right, so I'm not going to have you copy down 5 and 6, but basically if your constant is 24, you're looking for all the combinations that equal to 24. Okay, we don't have to do 5 and 6 for right now. All right, so let's move on to question number 7. So we're going to do the same thing we did with direct variation, where we're finding the missing number. So except for this time, we're multiplying x and y together because that's how you find a constant. So 12 times 14 equals -24 times y. When you multiply 12 times 16, you get 168. Then you're going to divide by -24 to solve it. Okay, that step just wasn't written there. You guys know that, to solve for y. And then y comes out to be -7. Same thing. 6 times -10, -60. 3 times y is 3y. Divide by 3. And y equals to -20. So you can kind of see the pattern. For inverse, we're multiplying them. For direct, we do y over x. All right, moving on to 9 and 10. 9 times y is 9y. -18 times 6 is -108. Divide both sides by 9. And y equals to -12. Okay, so you can copy down number 10, and then I'll give you a few minutes to, I'll stop it and give you a few minutes to finish. All right, so take a look and check your answer, see how you did on that. Are we okay with these? Okay. All right. Now we're going to take what we know about direct and inverse and apply them to some word problems. Okay, so that's going to be on the next page. All right, so let's take a look. So the way to set these up, let me just go over what you're going to do here, is you're going to identify what's in the problem, what they're talking about. It says the sales at a baseball game, and since sales comes first and it tells you it's varying directly, then sales will be your Y value. Okay, so what comes in front first, in front of that varies directly, is your Y value. What comes after that is your X, because you got to know which one is X and which one is Y. So it says the sales at a baseball game vary directly, so sales is Y, with the number of people attending. So the number of people will be your X value. So remember when we did direct variation, because if it says vary directly, the very first thing that should come in your mind is Y equals KX and K equals Y divided by X. So that's the very first thing that should come to your mind when it says varies directly. So since my Y value, I got to find my K by taking that, Y over X. You can set it up as a proportion, because then it says if you had 800 people to attend, determine how many people attend if the sales for a game are 15,000. So now you know that your sales number goes at the top over the number of people. So if you have it written this way, you know your Y is your sales, your X is the number of people, you'll know to put people at the bottom, your dollar amount at the top. And then you just cross multiply like we did a few minutes ago. Cross multiply this way, you have 12,000. Cross multiply the other way. Let's see, that's 1,200,000, I believe. Put some comments here, hold on. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Yes. So then when you divide it by 12,000, of course, you have 1,000. And this really should say people, okay, because that's what we were looking for. All right. Let's take a look at number 2. So again, you got to set it up so you know ounces of medication, so that's going to be your Y, vary directly with the weight of the patient, so that's going to be your X. Okay, so the first thing that's mentioned in this one was your ounces, so that's your Y over your X, which is weight. And then you just take a look at your numbers. So now I know that when I see pounds, and that's weight, that number goes at the bottom. So it says if a 120-pound adult requires 3/4 of an ounce of medication, and they just changed 3/4 to 0.75. How many ounces are required? So we don't know. So that's Y for a 200-pound adult. So pounds is at the bottom. And then we cross multiply. 120 times Y is 120. 200 times 0.75 is 150. Divide by 120, you get 1.25, and that should be ounces. Okay, so make sure you add that in there. All right. So let's take a look at number 3. The number of shares, so shares is Y, vary directly with the amount of dividends received per year. So your X's are dividends. If Kim owns 5 shares of stock, Y over X, she receives $12 per year. That's the dividends. Equals how many shares of stock? We don't know, so we say Y. If she receives $24. Okay. And then, of course, you cross multiply and solve. But the most important thing is to get that y over x correct, because if you put x over y, or y over, you're not going to get the right answer. All right, so you got to know which number is your y value, okay, which number is your x value. So I'm going to pause this. Okay, so you should have 750. So your y was the acreage, x was the bushels, and y over x equals y over x. You solve, you get 750. All right, very good. Let's move on to the last two. So this one says the income of the computer, so that's y. Analysis varies directly with the number of hours. So hours would be your x. And here it is, y over x. They tell you if the analyst earned an income of 256 for 8 hours, what is your constant, your k? So obviously 256 divided by 8 is 32. Okay, same thing for number 6. The gallons of water used to take a shower vary directly. So gallons is your y with the number of minutes, so that's your x. If an 8-minute shower uses 48 gallons, so 48 is gallons, so that's at the top, divided by 8, find the constant of variation, and obviously that's 6. Okay, does that seem pretty doable? Okay. Turn to some inverse variation examples. So we just did some ones that vary directly. So this is going to vary inversely. So remember, now we're multiplying x and y when it says inversely. So time traveling varies inversely with the average speed. So again, time is y because it comes first. Average speed is x. And it says if the train travels between two cities in 3 hours at an average speed of 65, so that's 3 times 65, how long will it take at an average speed of 78 miles per hour? So that's 78y, because time is y. We don't, when it says how long, that means we don't know, so we leave the variable. So 3 times 65 is 195. 78 times y is just 78y. Divide by 78, you should have 2.5. And that's going to be hours. Okay, they should say hours, so just write hours in. All right, let's look at number 8. A company that produces laptops has determined that the number of laptops it can sell varies inversely to the price of the laptop. Okay, so you have your number of laptops vary inversely to the price. So what comes first is y, second is x. So you're just multiplying again the two numbers together. It says 2,000 laptops. Here's what they just didn't write. They actually wrote out 2,000. 2,000 laptops can be sold at a price of $2,500. How many laptops, so that's going to be missing the y, can be sold at a price of $1,000? So 1,000 times y is 1,000y. Divide, you're going to end up with 5,000. And that's 5,000 what? Laptops. So put laptops at the end. 5,000 laptops. All right. Okay, I'm going to do one more with you. All right, it says the width of a rectangle varies inversely with its length. So we got y is width, x is length. If the width is 4 when the length is 18, 4 times 18, find the width, so find y when the length is 8, so 8y. Divide by 8, you get 9. Okay. All right, so this is what number 10 looks like. So we have the workers and the days, so you should have 5 times 24 equals 15 times y. Divide by 15, and you should have 8 workers. So just add on workers to that, okay? Because these are word problems, so you do technically need a label at the end. All right, and then the last two. At the time it takes to bake a turkey, okay, time varies inversely with the temperature. X is temperature. And remember, how do we find K for inverse? We multiply them together. It says if it takes 3 hours to bake a turkey at 300 degrees, find K. So that's going to be 900 for your constant. And then over here, the cost per person to rent a cottage. So cost is Y, came first. And the Outer Banks is inversely proportional. And that's another way to say inverse variation to the number of people who share the rent. So the number of people would be your X. So if 7 people share at a cost of $42 per person, find your K. You're just multiplying them together. Okay. All right. So your follow your calendar for your homework. But basically, that's going to be on the next page, okay, and the next page, and the next page. You'll see how many pages, but you can see it goes pretty quickly. It took me long just because I was doing the explanation part of it, but it will not take you very long to complete, okay? Now, you have very good examples. I've done like 6 pages with you, so you have enough information to get all of that completed.